Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in 1978. I'm Tom Harrison, and I'd come home early from my construction job, hoping to surprise my wife, Linda, with some extra time together. I thought I'd walk into a cozy house, maybe smell something cooking, and find Linda either relaxing with a book or starting dinner. But what I walked in, it changed everything. The front door creaked as I opened it, and I noticed right away that the house was unusually quiet. As I walked toward the living room, I heard Linda's voice, low and tense. She was on the phone. I stopped just outside the room, gripping the door frame. "Listen, I love you," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "But I want to keep my marriage. Can we keep seeing each other on the side?" My heart raced. I moved closer, peeking around the corner. Linda was sitting on the edge of the couch, holding the phone tightly. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were full of guilt and excitement. Her words were clear, unmistakable. "Don't make me choose," she continued. "I don't want to lose him, but I can't give you up either." The room spun around me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own wife, the woman I dedicated my life to, was openly discussing maintaining an affair while keeping me in the dark. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the sheer audacity, the disrespect. My fists clenched at my sides, my mind racing. This was no longer about a minor slip. It was a full-blown act of deceit. I couldn't stand there any longer. I stepped into the room, and the sound of the door creaking brought Linda's head up. Her eyes met mine, and the color drained from her face. The phone slipped from her hand, landing with a soft thud on the carpet. The silence that followed was deafening. I wanted to yell, to confront her, but I was paralyzed by the shock of the moment. The reality of her betrayal hit me hard. I knew then that everything I thought I understood about our life together was a lie. The days that followed were a blur of anger and confusion. I was determined to uncover the full extent of Linda's betrayal. I started going through her things, trying to put together the pieces she had left behind. Soon, I found a hidden drawer in her bedroom dresser, filled with old letters tied together with a ribbon. The letters were from Richard, a man I'd only heard her mention briefly. Each letter was filled with sweet words and promises, showing a connection much deeper than a simple fling. Richard's charm came through in every line, and Linda's replies showed a mix of innocence and deep attraction. Her words showed a side of her I'd never seen, eager and open. I began watching Linda's daily routine more closely. She often came home late, giving weak excuses about work or errands. Her behavior became more unpredictable. Small things changed, an unusual amount of time spent on the phone, sudden, unexplained trips, and an uncharacteristic detachment from family life. While going through old family albums, I found a photograph of Linda and Richard. They were laughing together, their closeness unmistakable. The photograph had been tucked away in the back of an album, almost hidden. It was a stark contrast to the image of a loving wife and mother I had always known. The more I discovered, the more I realized that Linda's seemingly innocent actions were part of a much larger deception. I noticed her financial habits were also unusual. Bills were being paid late, and large sums of money had been withdrawn from our joint account. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, painting a picture of a woman who had been living a double life. My anger grew as I connected the dots. Linda's naivete wasn't just a personal flaw. It had led to deliberate deceit and financial manipulation. The affair was more than just a betrayal of love. It was a calculated act that had consequences beyond emotional pain. I knew I had to dig deeper to fully understand the extent of her betrayal and the impact it had on our family. As I continued my investigation, Linda's behavior grew increasingly suspicious. I noticed more inconsistencies in her stories, and her phone became a source of constant tension. She'd often receive calls in private, and whenever I tried to glance at her screen, she would quickly hide it. One evening after Linda had gone to bed, I decided to examine her phone. I managed to unlock it by guessing her code, a risk I was willing to take. The messages were eye-opening. Linda and Richard talked often and closely, sharing plans and promises. They spoke about a future together, showing a serious commitment, not just a casual affair. I also found a series of emails between them. They described their secret meetings, how they planned to keep their double lives going, and how to hide everything from those around them. The emails used coded words, but the meaning was clear. Linda was deeply involved in keeping this affair hidden while pretending life at home was normal. Then, I found Linda's journal, tucked away at the back of her closet. Her entries were heartbreaking. She described her growing dissatisfaction with our marriage and her emotional dependency on Richard. Linda's writings painted a picture of a woman torn between her commitment to me and her desire for Richard. Her naivety was evident in her attempts to justify her actions, believing she could balance both lives without consequence. In addition to the emotional revelations, I uncovered financial records showing unauthorized transactions. Linda had been transferring money to an account I didn't know about, one that I later traced back to Richard. The financial strain on our household was becoming apparent, and Linda's actions were clearly driven by more than just emotional needs. They had financial implications as well. The more I discovered, the clearer it became that Linda's deceit was both calculated and extensive. Her lies were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger scheme to manipulate and control. It was no longer just a matter of a personal betrayal. It had become a complex web of deception involving both emotional and financial elements. As I continued to unravel Linda's deceit, I began to notice troubling changes in our children. Emma and Josh. Their behavior was shifting, and I couldn't ignore the signs that they were hiding something. Emma, my eldest, had become increasingly withdrawn. She spent long hours on her phone, whispering to someone late into the night. Her once lively demeanor was now tinged with secrecy. Josh, on the other hand, was unusually quiet. He used to be full of energy, always engaged in his hobbies and activities. Lately, he had retreated into his room, avoiding family interactions and showing little interest in things that once excited him. His silence was full of unspoken worry. One evening, while looking through old family photos, I noticed something strange. Emma and Josh had been unusually close lately, often whispering to each other and sharing glances, like they had a private joke or a secret. Their behavior made me think they knew more than they were saying. I decided to talk to them one-on-one. First, I found Emma alone in her room, deep in thought. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. When I asked what was wrong, she wouldn't look at me and quickly changed the subject. It was clear she was hiding something, but was too afraid to talk. Later, I found Josh in the basement, working on a model airplane. He was normally enthusiastic about his projects, but tonight he was focused and distant. When I questioned him, he became defensive and evasive, unwilling to share what was troubling him. I knew there was more to their behavior than mere teenage angst. It dawned on me that they had been caught in the crossfire of Linda's deception. They had been trying to protect her, believing that revealing the truth would only cause more pain. Their silence spoke volumes about their struggle to navigate the chaos that had engulfed our family. The more I observed, the clearer it became that Emma and Josh were deeply affected by Linda's actions. They were hiding their own fears and concerns, caught between loyalty to their mother and their growing realization of the truth. The emotional stakes were rising, and the family's unity was crumbling under the weight of hidden secrets. Desperate for clarity and insight, I turned to Mike O'Reilly, an old friend from my days working in construction. Mike had retired from the police force years ago, but still had the knack for digging up the truth. I knew his experience could help me understand the full scope of Linda's betrayal. I reached out to Mike and arranged to meet him at a local bar where we used to catch up. I told him the basics, that Linda was having an affair with a man named Richard, and I was drowning in a sea of deceit. Mike listened carefully, nodding as I spoke, his face growing serious. He agreed to help, using his contacts and skills to investigate Richard's background. Over the next few days, Mike dug deep into Richard's life, uncovering details I hadn't anticipated. Richard was a smooth-talking salesman with a reputation for exploiting vulnerable women. He had a history of manipulating and discarding those he grew tired of. Linda was just one more name on a long list of Richard's victims. Mike's research showed that Richard had used different fake names over the years, each time going after women in vulnerable situations. His charm was his tool, and he had a clear pattern of lies and manipulation. The more Mike found, the clearer it was that Linda's attraction to Richard was part of his planned scheme, not just a simple affair. Mike's investigation also revealed Richard's money schemes. He often used relationships to get access to money and resources. Linda's unexplained withdrawals and strange financial activity now made sense. She had been supporting Richard's lifestyle, thinking it was part of an innocent relationship. With Mike's help, I could finally connect Linda's actions to Richard's manipulative tactics. The web of deceit stretched far beyond what I had initially imagined. Mike's expertise in relentless pursuit of the truth had provided me with the evidence I needed to understand the full scale of the betrayal and prepare for the next steps in my plan for revenge. With Mike's revelations in hand, I decided it was time to confront Linda. I needed to address the lies and deceit directly to see if there was any shred of honesty left in her. The plan was to corner her with all the evidence I had gathered, hoping for a clear and truthful response. One evening, I waited for Linda to come home from what I knew was yet another secret rendezvous. The house was quiet, filled with an anxious tension. When she finally walked through the door, I could tell from the look on her face that she knew something was coming. Her attempt at casual conversation fell flat. The truth hung heavily in the air. I laid everything out on the dining table, the letters from Richard, the photographs, the emails, and the financial records. Each piece of evidence was meticulously arranged, a testament to the betrayal I had uncovered. Linda's eyes widened as she saw the collection of her deceit spread out before her. I confronted her with the documents, detailing how I had pieced together her affair and the financial manipulations. Linda's initial reaction was one of shock and denial. She tried to explain away each piece of evidence, but her excuses were hollow and inconsistent. Her once confident demeanor crumbled as I presented each new revelation. Despite her attempts to deflect, it was clear that Linda was deeply aware of the gravity of her situation. Her guilt was evident in her tears and the way she avoided making eye contact. She admitted to the affair with Richard, but her words were full of excuses instead of real regret. She begged for understanding, saying she'd made mistakes but still loved me and wanted to save our marriage. Her pleas didn't affect me. The proof of her lies was clear, and her excuses only showed how deep the betrayal went. I realized she wasn't truly sorry for the hurt she'd caused, only for the trouble she was now facing. Her pleas for forgiveness were just an attempt to escape the consequences. As Linda kept crying and begging, I felt a strong sense of resolve. I knew her pleas were just another way to manipulate me. This confrontation had not only revealed her lies, but also helped me see the way forward. Her evasive truths only strengthened my resolve to take decisive action and seek the revenge I had been contemplating. I needed to understand the full extent of her deceit. I continued to search for any additional clues that might explain her actions and the impact on our lives. One night, while going through old boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon a collection of documents and files that Linda had carefully hidden away. Among the papers, I found financial records that revealed a troubling picture. It wasn't just the unauthorized transactions I had seen earlier. There were detailed records of large sums of money being transferred to an account I didn't recognize. This account was linked to Richard, further confirming his role in manipulating Linda. The documents also included correspondence between Linda and her lawyer. I hadn't realized the extent of Linda's financial manipulations, but the lawyer's notes indicated ongoing issues that Linda had kept hidden. She had been siphoning money from our joint accounts to fund her affair with Richard. The financial strain on our family was becoming clearer, and Linda's actions were affecting our stability. While sorting through these papers, I came across a folder labeled Personal. Inside were letters and notes that painted a disturbing picture. Linda had been engaging in more than just an affair. She had been planning to leave me for Richard, all while maintaining the facade of a loving wife and mother. Her journal entries described her intentions to eventually divorce me, all the while preparing a financial safety net with the money she had siphoned off. The revelation was crushing. Linda's deceit wasn't just about emotional betrayal. Linda had created a careful financial plan to secure her future with Richard. Her choices had put our family's finances at risk, and her betrayal went deeper than I first thought. Finding these documents showed it wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a planned scheme with serious consequences. Linda's poor judgment had led her into a path of lies that was not only hurtful, but financially damaging. With this new information, I felt both anger and determination. Her betrayal was bigger than I had imagined, affecting our whole family. Moving forward would need careful planning, not only to address my feelings, but also to handle the financial and emotional impact of her actions. Now, I decided to look more closely into the people around Linda, aiming to fully understand the web of lies she had been part of. I reached out to Linda's close friends, hoping to uncover any additional secrets that might shed light on the situation. Each interaction revealed more about the tangled web of lies that surrounded her. Had been a constant presence in her life. I visited Carol under the guise of wanting to talk about Linda's recent behavior. As we spoke, it became apparent that Carol had her own struggles. She had been through a failed marriage and was bitter about her own experiences. Carol's support of Linda's affair was driven by her own disillusionment with relationships, and she had become an enabler rather than a voice of reason. During our conversation, Carol casually mentioned Linda's frequent late-night phone calls and sudden absences, which only confirmed what I had already suspected. Carol had known about the affair and had been helping Linda cover her tracks. Her own bitterness and unresolved issues had led her to support Linda's choices rather than confront them. Next, I spoke with another of Linda's close friends, and had always seemed like a reliable and supportive person. However, her reaction to the news of Linda's affair was strangely subdued. It turned out that Anne had been dealing with her own financial difficulties and was secretly receiving financial assistance from Linda. This arrangement created a conflict of interest, making Anne less likely to question Linda's actions or offer genuine support. The more I dug, the more I realized that Linda's social circle was riddled with hidden agendas. Each friend had their own secrets and personal issues, which had contributed to a culture of deception and support for Linda's affair. Their involvement was not just passive, they were actively complicit in maintaining Linda's double life. One final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I discovered that Linda's work colleague, Janet, had been instrumental in arranging some of Linda's secret meetings with Richard. Janet had her own reasons, including a long-standing rivalry with me, that influenced her actions. Her part in the affair was driven by a desire to hurt me and support Linda's cheating. The web of lies was more complicated than I thought. Each person in Linda's life had their own hidden motives, and their support for her affair was fueled by personal issues and conflicts. Understanding these roles and motives was important as I prepared for the final confrontation. The truth showed that Linda's betrayal wasn't just one isolated event. It was part of a larger pattern of lies and manipulation. As I put together the details of the deception around Linda, it became clear that the betrayal went far beyond her affair with Richard. Learning about her friends' and acquaintances' involvement added more complexity. Their hidden motives and personal issues played a big role, and it was essential to understand their full involvement. Emma and Josh, my children, have been shielding Linda from the truth. They have been trying to protect her, caught between their loyalty to their mother and their sense of what was right. Their secrecy and evasiveness were not just about teenage rebellion, but a misguided attempt to keep the family together. Their actions had unwittingly kept the deceit alive, prolonging the pain and complicating the situation further. Carol, Linda's best friend, had played a significant role in supporting Linda's deceit. Her own failed marriage and bitterness had led her to rationalize Linda's affair rather than confront it. Carol had been a constant source of support for Linda, offering emotional and practical assistance in maintaining the facade. Her involvement was driven by her personal issues and a desire to validate her own choices, making her an enabler of Linda's betrayal. And another friend had her own financial troubles and was secretly benefiting from Linda's financial manipulations. Her subdued reaction to the affair was influenced by her dependence on Linda's support. Anne's reluctance to confront the situation was driven by her own need for financial stability, further complicating the web of deceit. Janet, Linda's work colleague, had been instrumental in facilitating some of Linda's secret meetings with Richard. Janet's motivations were rooted in a personal rivalry with me, coloring her actions and making her a willing accomplice in Linda's affair. Her role was not just a matter of assisting Linda, but also of undermining me, driven by her own grievances and conflicts. The deeper I delved into the lives of these individuals, the more apparent it became that Linda's betrayal was part of a broader pattern of manipulation and deceit. Each person involved had their own reasons for participating in or supporting the affair, creating a complex network of personal and emotional conflicts. Understanding these hidden agendas was crucial for me as I prepared for the final steps in my quest for revenge. The intricate web of secrets and motivations revealed the extent of the betrayal and provided insight into the broader impact on my life and family. It was clear that addressing the situation required more than just confronting Linda. It involved navigating the tangled relationships and hidden motivations of those who had enabled her deceit. With the full scope of Linda's betrayal and the roles of everyone involved now clear, I was ready to put my plan for revenge into action. The painful revelations had given me the clarity and determination to move forward. My plan was simple: confront Linda one last time, show her all the evidence, and make sure her lies had lasting consequences. I carefully organized everything: letters, photos, financial records, and documents showing her plans to leave. I wanted there to be no room for denial or excuses. One evening, I called a family meeting. The atmosphere was heavy as Linda, Emma, and Josh sat around the dining table. I could see the worry in Emma's face and the way Josh avoided my gaze. Linda, meanwhile, appeared anxious but determined to put on a brave front. I knew this confrontation would be the final reckoning. I laid out the evidence on the table, each piece meticulously arranged. I began by detailing Linda's affair with Richard, showing the letters and photographs that exposed their intimate relationship. I then presented the financial documents that revealed her unauthorized withdrawals and transfers to Richard's account. The final blow came with the documents from her lawyer, illustrating her planned departure and the financial safety net she had been preparing. Linda's reaction was one of shock and devastation. Her face turned pale as she saw the full extent of her actions laid bare. She began to cry and plead, but her words were mere noise against the overwhelming evidence. Her pleas for forgiveness and explanations were lost in the reality of her lies. I gave Linda divorce papers, making it clear that our marriage was over. This decision felt final. I had reached a point where I couldn't forgive her anymore. Linda's betrayal had not only destroyed our relationship, but also put our family's financial stability at risk. Along with the divorce, I took steps to make sure Linda faced financial consequences. I worked with a lawyer to fairly divide our assets, ensuring she wouldn't benefit from her dishonesty. I addressed the financial strain she had caused us and made sure she felt the impact of her actions. Emma and Josh were stuck in the middle of everything. I reassured them that these changes weren't their fault and that we would get through this new chapter together. The future of our family was uncertain, but I was determined to rebuild and move forward, despite the pain and betrayal we had faced. The revenge felt bittersweet. It gave me a sense of justice and closure, but it didn't erase the emotional scars left by Linda's betrayal. The feelings of betrayal would stay with me, but I was committed to facing the future with a clear mind and a focus on rebuilding my life and my relationship with my children. Second story. I'm in a difficult situation and could really use some outside opinions. I'll try to explain it simply. I've been with my girlfriend for about 2 years, and we've always felt a strong connection. But recently, I found out she was seeing another guy without telling me. For weeks, I felt something was wrong. She seemed distant, and when I asked if there was someone else, she said she was just stressed about her family living in another country. She insisted that she loved me and that I was being overly worried. It turns out she wasn't just busy. She was actually spending time with this other guy, texting him, video calling him, and even talking about marriage. When this guy confronted her, she told him she had already broken up with me a long time ago and that I was out of her life. When I found out and set up a video call with both of them, she said in front of us that she loves me, not him, and that her relationship with him was a mistake. She apologized, saying she was confused and wants to be with me, and has been asking for another chance ever since. Now, I'm feeling torn. I still have strong feelings for her, and it's hard to walk away from what we had. But her dishonesty has really hurt my trust. She looked me in the eyes and said I was the only one, even while she was with him. I can't shake the worry that this could happen again, and I don't know if I can feel secure in the relationship again. To make things even more complicated, her family has started opposing our relationship, which adds more pressure. So I'm wondering, is it worth trying to fix this? Or would it be better to walk away? Can trust really be rebuilt after this? Or am I just setting myself up for more pain? I'd really appreciate any advice or thoughts, especially from anyone who has been in a similar situation. Should I give her another chance? Or is it time to let go, even if it means losing someone I care about? Thanks for taking the time to read this and for any advice you can give.